find ourselves at Park Hilltop Desert here at 185 Wamego Trail in beautiful downtown Flamingo Heights, better known as the suburban part of Yucca Valley, that great metropolis here in the desert.
Yucca Valley,
We're having a nice evening interviewing Grandpa here on the night that we're going to be seeing the Halley's Comet, and that's something for Grandpa is the second time. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Well, would you like to hear something else before that?
Well, sure. Anything?
Well, for instance, I was born December the 18th, 1904. See? A boy, of course.
Are you still a boy?
Yeah, still a boy. No,
okay.
I'm a grown man now. 81 years old. But anyhow, I was only one of 10 children. See? And my father was he was a painter, tile setter. He was an artist. My father was an artist, really. In his profession, he was an artist, and he really was. Anyhow, he died at a young age of 40, and left us other children to struggle along in life and make our own way, you know. But as the turn of, right at the early turn of the century, you know, the 19th century, why, there wasn't much around for anybody to do. There was a lot to accomplish, you know. A lot could be accomplished if you had the ambition to do it. And I was just a young kid, and I never had a whole lot of education, you know. But as school-wise, but as I grew into a manhood and got married, well, there's a lot of things I learned that it's hard to come by any other way, you know, but just get out and do it and learn it, you know what I mean?
That's right.
See? And, well, before I grew up, when I was a kid, 5 years old, I think it was in 1910, well, I might have been almost 6 years old at that time. Well, I was born the last month of 1904, so you might say I was almost born in 1905. See? But anyhow, 1910 is when they call it Halley's Comet now, but when I first saw it, it was Halley's Comet. See? And I read in the paper nowadays where they say people were scared to death and hiding under beds and covering their heads and all this, you know what I mean? But I don't remember anybody being scared. At least there wasn't anybody in my family scared at that time, you know? We saw Halley's Comet. We knew it was going to come. It came out of the sky like a big ball of fire, and the tail, I don't know how many miles long.
How big was it?
Huh?
About how big was it?
Oh, as big as this room. Of course, it looked as big as this room, you know, like about 50 feet in diameter from what we saw, you know. And it had a tail maybe about, maybe about 200 feet long. Fire, all fire. And it came out of the sky, and it went through the air, and I don't know how, of course, it might have gone millions of miles, that's all I know. We didn't have any of these computers in those days to catch it, you know, or the cameras to catch it. But anyhow, it came out of the sky, and it went back into the sky the same way it came out. And it was a good thing it didn't fall on Earth. If it had, it wouldn't be in the Earth. Believe me.
Do you think we ought to get comet insurance?
I don't think they'd sell it to you.
No.
It'd be too expensive. Well, anyhow, that's part of my early life.
Well, we're gonna look at it tonight.
Yeah.
You can give us a comparison.
I mean, by seeing Halley's Comet, and tonight, now I'm 81 years old, it's going to be in view again in the sky, and I know it won't be the sensation that I saw when I was a child. I know that because I can't understand how it's even stayed in the sky for these months that it's been in. People are looking at it. We only saw it for seconds, you know what I mean? Now they're seeing it here for a month or more, am I right? They don't understand it. But anyhow...
If you compared it to the size of the moon when the moon is full...
the Halley's Comet? Oh, Halley's Comet would have swallowed the moon up like nobody's business. Halley's Comet was much, much bigger than the moon, or even the sun. When you first see it coming up in the morning, you know, or going down in the horizon at night, it was much bigger. But anyhow, after I was, when I was around about 5 years, I ran a nail, I guess, in my hand, my right arm, and I don't ever remember. But then I had blood poison in my arm, and they sent me to the hospital. I have no idea how long I was in there, but they tell me when I was a kid, 5 or 6 years old, that my arm was as big then as it is now. See? But it took a year for it to heal up.
All right.
See the scars?
Oh yeah.
See?
I never knew that.
Yeah, it took a year for that arm to heal up. So I lost a year to start in school. And anyhow, I did start in school, and then when I did, I went from one grade to the other, skipped a grade because I was too smart for the kids in the grade I was in, you know what I mean? But anyhow, I quit school at an early age and went to work. And I think my first job at work when I quit school was delivering milk. See? Delivering milk. I had a small dairy in town called Butler's Dairy there in Pittman, New Jersey, and I was working for Mr. Butler, serving milk, washing bottles, going out from house to house, collecting money for the month, for the weekly milk they bought, you know, things like that. And I think experience like that when I was that young helped me to later on become a good salesman, see? Because I had the experience of going around selling people and collecting money and stuff like that. So I worked for this man, maybe about a year. Then I worked for somebody else, and when I was 16, I had a job driving a taxi cab for a man by the name of Logan Bookhart. He was an engineer. In fact, he and the company he worked with, Prismani, laid a whole sewage system through the town of Pittman, New Jersey. And, you know, and helped put a disposal plant in there. That was way back in, I was 16 years old, so they tell me, how many years ago was that? 16, that'd be 65 years ago, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
65 years ago.
About 1920.
And there was only 900 people in this town, so the people nowadays can realize what the difference is. Because they're getting big wages and everything else, it costs so much to do something. They put that whole system in that town for just maybe $150,000 with all those streets in this town, you know? And this disposal plant and the whole thing, and the system still works, you know what I mean? See? But anyhow, that's gone ancient history. But I drove this taxi cab years ago when I was a kid, 16 years old, Model T Ford, 30 by 3 tires on the front, 30 by 3.5 on the back, you know. Big deal.
I'd like to, I bet you wish you had one of those cars right now.
Oh, I do, but it'd only be good for an auntie. But anyhow, and then I worked there, then I worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad, the West Jersey and Cedar Shore Railroad in New Jersey, in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in the Switch Tower in Atlantic City. The BR Tower. It's right off the thoroughfare. It separates, in other words, it makes Atlantic City an island. It's like a thoroughfare, right? Cuts the whole city off from the world. See? And our tower was there. I used to throw the switches, pot signals and arm signals for the trains come in and go out, you know. And I did that for 2 summers. And then I went to work for before that I went to work in the shipyard too. When I was between 16 and 17, I went to work in the shipyard.
What kind of things did they have you doing at the shipyard?
In the shipyard, the first thing I did was pass rivets. In those days, the ships, they weren't welded. The only kind of welding they had in those days was acetylene welding. Didn't have any electric welding that they have today. And the ship was put together by rivets. They drilled holes and they put the rivets in there and sealed, you know. Anyhow, then I became a heater boy. I was heating rivets.
How old were you then?
16.
Yeah.
I was 16 years old, working on cargo boats.
Okay, can you remember what they paid you?
Working on cargo boats. And what they paid me?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. When I first went in as a passer boy, I think I got 36 cents an hour 36 cents an hour, something like that. My monthly ticket from Pittman up to Gloucester, South Gloucester, that's where the shipyard was located along the Delaware River. That was trip about 10 miles from home, New Jersey. The shipyard was about 10 miles. And when they finished these ships there, they launched them sideways over into the water. They launched them sideways. And during the course of the time that I worked there, when they no longer needed the ship didn't any longer need rivets, and they laid some of us guys off in the riveting gangs, I went in the ship carpenter gang, worked as a ship carpenter's helper, you know. And we helped launch these ships. That they were on the keel. The ship was on the keel, you know. And before they launched the keel, before they launched the ship, they had a great big thick rope about 5 inches thick, you know, tied on the front of the ship, you know, on the bow, and it was very tight, you know, see. And they had a big sharp axe there, and that they would cut when the ship was ready to launch. But underneath of the ship, they had all these pyramids like that the ship rested on, you know, from being built from the keel up. And they had wedges on 4 sides under this ship. And all of us people who worked in the carpentry department, ship fitting and what have you, we had to get under with mauls and knock these wedges in. And by knocking these wedges in, there were so many of them, you know, the whole length of the ship, it actually raised the ship, you see what I mean? And tightened that rope more, see? Then after we did this about 5 times together, you know, in unison, then they cut the rope and over would go the ship in the water sideways. It would rock back and forth and finally straighten up.
Straighten up, huh?
Yeah.
For heaven's sake.
So that's the way it was years ago in the shipyard. That shipyard has long since been closed. But anyhow,
well, you were telling us about the Kersey Meat Packing Company.
well, I'll get to that. Anyhow, after that I went to work. After I worked for the shipyard and the railroad, I went to work for the Kersey Meat Packing Company. First, I worked inside, helped kill hogs, slaughter hogs, you know. All this done the other. And then after that, they took me out on the road, driving a truck, hauling supplies from Philadelphia back to our plant, you know what I mean? And also delivering orders for stores, see? So then, as their business progressed and they had more customers, they started to put trucks on the road with a driver, salesman on it to build their business up, you know, so you get more customers. And my first job on a truck in the line of selling was, I wasn't a salesman, but I had to get up 4 o'clock in the morning, load that truck with meat, and drive it 50 miles to Atlantic City, a Model T Ford, drive it from Pittman to Atlantic City.
Well, what happened if it snowed?
Huh?
What happened if it snowed? Would it just close down business?
When it snowed?
Yeah.
You crazy? My grandson asked me what we do in the snow when it snowed in the wintertime. We went out and served our customers every day. That didn't stop us.
Well, what if it was like 6 feet?
You drive out in the field and go around the bank and keep on going down the highway.
Just keep on going, huh?
It's like the mailman, the hail, snow, we always don't stop for delivering the mail, see? And it didn't stop us from selling meat either.
Well,
But I'll tell you,
kept it cold too, I'll bet.
back in those days on the Model T Ford, you didn't have any heater in it. You took the floorboard out and put your feet on the manifold to keep them warm. No kidding.
How about that? Today we'd use microwave.
Yeah, and I remember one time in the wintertime, my first stop, I used to service station, they had a little meat market in there. They sold little meat, and I used to sell them little meat. Anyhow, I used to stop there, and one morning there was snow on the ground. It was pretty cold, and my right foot got frostbitten, you know, and just about as numb as it could be. So I stopped there, and there was a elderly man sitting there, old enough to be my father or my grandfather at that time, He said to me, he says, young man, he says, if you got a frosted foot, he says, you better take that shoe off and run out there in that snow in your bare feet, in your bare feet until your foot warms up and starts to sting, you know, that you know you got some circulation back in there again. Because otherwise, if you get put against that stove, you could get gangrene. You know what I mean? Because the blood wouldn't come in there. It would heat up, and that would cause the gangrene in your feet. I did that, and my foot was all right. Never bothered me. Anyhow, I drove this truck to Atlantic City, and this elderly man went to work for Kersey because he used to work for Taylor Provision Company there in Pleasantville, New Jersey, and he was old enough to be my father by a long shot. And I had to get up early in the morning and drive his truck down there with a load of meat, so I would be on the street at 6:30 in the morning, start selling to customers, you know. Then after the day's work was done, after you got done selling, if they had any meat left, I had to take it back to the plant and unload it myself, and put the truck away, and go home, get my sleep, come back the next morning at 4 o'clock and load the truck again. I had to do that 6 days a week. But I was paid at that time, let me see, I was between 18 and 20 years old. That was in 1923 or 24. I was making $35 a week for doing that. But anyhow, this man got so he wasn't doing too much business, and the man that owned, the son that owned, that run the business, Orville Kersey, my boss, he said to me one day, he says, Parke, he says, would you like to be a salesman? I said, why not? You know, I rode with this other guy all the time he was selling, so I knew how to do it, you know. I said, sure, I'd like to be a salesman. He said, well, he said, I'm going to fire that other fellow's working there, Charlie Zoll was his name. He said, I'm going to fire him because he said, it's costing me money. He said, sit down there, you know, he's not doing enough business to pay you and him both. So he gave me the job of salesman on that truck. And, well, the first few months, I didn't do any less business than the other guy did, you know. I didn't do any less business. But after the first year, I had increased that business double from what the other man was doing, see? I was selling twice as much meat as he was. In other words, instead of making $35 a week, after the first year, I was getting up to where I was making $45 and $50 a week, see? And in those days, that was big money, believe me. Most people were working $15 and $20 a week, but I had to work 6 days to make it, and long hours. But hard work never bothered me. The harder the work, more fun it was.
Sure.
And I worked for that company for 16 years, and they hadn't at that time. Well, anyhow, yeah, I worked there 16 years, but that's not the half of it. During that 16 years, I was a route foreman for him. I was a sales manager for him. I went all over the state of New Jersey. We had one truck on the road when I started, and they put 2 and 3, got up to 10 trucks, you know, see? And this Orville Kersey, the boss of the company, he took me off the truck and put another man on to take my place on my territory, see? And he made me route foreman, and I had to ride with all the rest of the salesmen in order to build up their business, see? So that it made their route pay, and also made them more money, see? And my boss, in those days, paid me $65 a week to do this as a route foreman, see? Back in the 20s. And, well, I was very successful with the meat company. I was a top salesman for the company. I could sell more meat and get more new customers than any man they had working there. That's why they made me sales manager and route foreman and all that. And later on, I quit that company and went to work for another company because the man went for work to, instead of working for Kersey Packing Company, I quit and went to work for Dunham Packing Company. And I worked for this man 2 years after I left Kersey. And I just couldn't get along with him because the products that he wanted me to sell weren't as good as they should be. You know what I mean? He leave too much fat on the hands, or too much fat on the shoulders, too much fat on the loins, and all things like this, you know. And
how about his scrapple? Was it good?
oh, the scrapple was all right. You couldn't hardly spoil the scrapple because a bunch of cornmeal cooked up with seasonings, you know, and a little bit of meat, pig head, pig ears, pig snouts, and all that stuff in there. You couldn't put pigtails there because they had bone in them. But anyhow,
How about that?
but anyhow, I quit. I worked for him for 2 years, and I quit him. And
When did you meet Grandma?
I come to that. I guess I should have told that I met Grandma, and well, I haven't got there yet either. I mean, during the 16 years I worked for Cozy Pack Company, I met my first wife when I was 17 years old, and we got married when I was 19, and we had 2 children. My daughter Sarah, and my son Bill, and came home from work one evening, just getting ready to eat dinner, and my first wife just dropped dead right in front of me in my kitchen, and then I had 2 children. I had to live with my mother-in-law, you know.
What was your first wife's name, her maiden name?
Mary Elizabeth Van Meter. Mary Elizabeth Van Meter, and my mother-in-law took care of my 2 children until I got married again. But I wasn't satisfied with living with somebody else, so I got married the second time, and the second marriage didn't plan out, so I divorced my second wife, and I met my third wife in I think in 1930 I met my third wife, and she was the mother of your mother, you know, Ruthie, and my third wife and I, we were very happily married for 53 years before she passed away. But anyhow, there was a lot of things took place in between those years. Like I said, I went to work for Dunham Pack Company. I quit them. Then I talked to my wife about it. I wanted to go in business for myself. And a young Jewish boy had a big Chevrolet truck. It was built for refrigeration, and I saw this truck. This is before I ever went in business for myself. I saw this truck, and I asked the man where it was housed in the garage there. I said, "How come this young man's not running this truck?" And he told me that his mother took it away from him, see, because he wasn't doing. He got married a 40-year-old woman. He was a 23-year-old boy. He couldn't have no kids. His mother didn't like that. She wanted his son to have children. So that's how come this guy had lost his business. And his mother took the truck away from him. Well, that's how I come to buy it. Back in those days, this was a pretty nice looking truck, a big red truck. I'm sorry I never had a picture of it, but I never had a picture taken. And I found out from this man who owned the truck and where the person lived. And I went down there and talked to her and asked her how much she wanted for it. She said she wanted $1,100 for the Chevy truck. Had all new tires on it, 6 tires, you know, dual wheels on the back, good cab and everything else. It was a Chevrolet 6, 2.5-ton truck. And so I talked to her about it, and I went home and told my wife about it. And well, we didn't have $3,000. We owned our home at that time, but we didn't have $3,000. that I wanted to borrow $3,000 so I'd have enough money to go in business, you know. See, you can't buy meat for nothing, you have to pay for it. So we went to see a man by the name of George Wilson in Clayton, New Jersey. And my wife and I went there together, and we explained to him just exactly what I was going to do. And he knew the man I used to work for, Cozy Packing Company. He knew him. And this man had apple and peach orchard there in Clayton, between Clayton and Williamstown. He also had a lake down there where he had cabins he rented out in the summertime, and that's where he made his money. But anyhow, after we talked to this man, he decided he would loan us some money. So he told my wife to go down to meet him at the Clayton National Bank in Clayton, New Jersey, which is about 6 miles from where we lived, on Pittman Jefferson Road near Pittman, New Jersey. And my wife went down there. He counted her $3,000 out of a safety deposit box. And at that time, he never even asked for a receipt for it. That's the difference between people in those days and now. But anyhow, he charged me 3% interest for the money, which isn't too much difference from today, really, when it comes down to it. Anyhow, I got the truck, got my license for it and everything else, and after I quit my job with Dunham Packing Company and decided to go into business for myself, like I said, I got my truck, got everything I needed, and had my name painted on the side, Parke Provisions, and on both sides of the truck.
How was it? Parke what?
Parke Provisions.
Provisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So had that done, and my wife and I went to Philadelphia by a man named J.R. Rollison. He was a broker. He sold lunch meat and straps of cheese and canned goods and stuff like that, you know, see. And how I knew him was through the company Kersey I used to work for, Kersey Packing Company. And Kersey used to buy things from me too, through a broker, you know what I mean? And he drove my wife and I to Baltimore, Maryland, to the SK Packing Company, which is Schulenberg and Colonel. And they're still in business in Baltimore today, by the way. They're still there in business. But anyhow, he took us down there for one purpose, because during the time that I worked for Kersey Packing Company, my boss used to buy provisions from them, and hams and shoulders and loins and things like that. And their products were always first class, good merchandise, you know what I mean? You'd always depend on the quality, it was good. So I figured when I went into business that I would handle their provisions and their pork, you know? Because I knew they were good. And I knew if I had good merchandise, I wouldn't have any problem selling it, see? With no problem selling good merchandise. So I started out with SK, and we went down there in the first place to find out about if they would sell me merchandise and what the conditions would be on with us about the credit line, you know, for buying, see? And after we talked there for quite a while and had lunch together, Mr. Schulenberg, Mr. Colonel, both, they were still there. And the man by the name of Waters was their credit man, you know, credit manager. And what they told my wife and I was, you can have $20,000 worth of meat a week, but you have to pay on Tuesday. See? You have to pay the bill on Tuesday, otherwise you won't get no more. So I started out on Thursday. I ordered $800 worth of meat the first day. That was in business. Or $800 worth of meat. Now that $800 represented at that time half of the capital that we had to go in business with. After buying the truck and license and everything, you know what I mean? We borrowed the $3,000. We only had $1,800 left. Less. That's right. See? And I told these people that, you know. But for the 18 years experience I had all over the state of New Jersey, they figured if I could do that for 18 years for somebody else, well, why can't I do it for myself? You see what I mean?
Sure.
So, like I said, they gave us a credit rating, unlimited credit rating. See? All we had to do was pay the bill every Tuesday. But I got that $800 load of meat, the truck delivered to my house in Pittman Jefferson Road at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I had my truck already iced up, you know, clean and everything else, already put the meat in there. I loaded all the meat in there, put it where it belonged, everything I bought, you know. I went out that afternoon, and by 9 o'clock that night I was home and sold a whole load of meat. I had no more meat left, but I had a pocket full of money. So that very night, I called S.K. Baltimore and I ordered another load of meat. This time it was about $1,100 worth, you know. Told me to get there as soon as they could. And from then on, I sold a load of meat 5 days a week. Sold a load of meat. And
what was your markup on it? How much did you make every day?
well, like pork loins, I'd get 2 cents a pound.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, for the whole load. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole load.
Well, the markup of volume when you're in the wholesale meat business, you can't get much.
No.
So you know, because you have competition, and these houses will always give you 2 to 3 cents off on a street price, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If the street price was 28 cents for loin, they sold to me for 26.
Sure.
So, and I sold to my customers for 28. Like that, you see what I mean? Well, I sell a man 100 pounds, I got $2 in my pocket.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So then,
Now, if I sold boiled ham and stuff like that, canned boiled hams, I got 6 or 7, 8 cents a pound on that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Because you automatically made better money this way, because then you were averaging 15 or 20 or 25 or $30 a day
Oh, yeah.
or more.
Sure.
Right.
Because, and they allowed me a little shrinkage when they saw me. See, they lay about 2 pounds when they saw it deal.
Right.
We get 100 pounds, they charge it for 98. You know what I mean? Something like that. Because they know that the meat's going to sweat, the moisture's going to run out. You know what I mean? They know that. See, and they allow you that. And when I sold my meat, I weighed it on scales. I gave them honest weight, but I didn't give them anything. I couldn't. Every ounce I weighed, I had to get paid for it. You know, because that cost me money.
Sure.
If I bought 20 pork loins and they weighed 200 pounds, they weighed 200 pounds on scale one time.
Grandpa, let's back up for just a minute. We're going to run out of tape here. We want to be sure that that we ask you about how you met Grandma. Tell us about that.
Well, how I met Grandma was by this. I was still working for the packing company at that time, Kersey Packing Company. And that's after my first wife died, and I divorced the second one. Anyhow, there was a small repair garage between Barnesboro. It was in Barnesboro. That's a little town between Pittman and Manchester. See, about 3 miles from Pittman. And my wife at that time, she worked in Philadelphia for Lion Ross Brothers Montgomery, a certified public accountant. She was one of the high. She was a secretary to one of the big shots in the company. You know what I mean? She had a beautiful job. At that time, she was making $375 a month. At that time, before I married her. But anyhow, Jack Orange had this garage. I went up and I get some work done on my car. He was a pretty good mechanic, you know. And he said to me one morning, he says, "Hey, Parke, would you like to meet a nice young lady for a date?" I said, "Well, where's she going to be? Where is she?" He said, "Well, she parks her car here every day, gets a bus into Philadelphia." I said, "Sure, make me a date." He said to play cards, you know, play pinochle, not poker, to play pinochle. I said, "Sure, I'd like to have a date." And in the meantime, I hadn't got my divorce from my first wife yet, the second wife rather. And so we met and we had this date. We played cards, and I didn't take my third wife home that night, but I followed her home and I bid her good night. You know, after she drove home, and I found out where she lived.
Why don't you tell us why you didn't take her home?
Well, she said she drove her own car. She could drive her own car. That's why I didn't take her home. And but anyhow, at that time she owned a what's that car Cadillac used to make?
LaSalle.
She owned a LaSalle, sport model LaSalle. Today, if you have one of them today, it'd be worth $20,000 or more, you know. But anyhow, I met her that day and that night, and we played cards, and I left. I said, "When can I see you again?" She said, "I don't know." Give me no date. So anyhow.
Did you say something like "suit yourself, bud"?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't say it wasn't. No, I was always very polite with women.
No. Grandma. Is that what she said? Suit yourself or something?
Well,
that sounds like something she'd say.
I don't know. I don't know anyhow. So we were going. I met her again, and then we kept going together. And I told her I was married. See, well, she thought I had been married. She thought, did you know that I was getting a divorce at that time?
Yeah.
She thought I'd been married. She thought I was unmarried. But anyhow, as we were going together for a while, somebody told a neighbor of my future mother-in-law, that's Emma's mother, that I was a married man. That just sat very good with her. You know? Mm-hmm. And she's trying to make my third wife quit going with me because I was a married man, see? So Emma told her mother, she says, well, he told me he was married. He didn't lie to me. Mm-hmm. But did he tell you he was getting a divorce? She said no. But he said he said he was married, you know.
Right.
So she said he really didn't lie to me, you know what I mean? So anyhow, we became better acquainted and we kept on going together, and finally she helped me get my divorce by hiring a woman lawyer in Philadelphia, and found out that my second wife had another child in the meantime, during the time before I got my divorce. Mm-hmm. And I found out she had this another child between the time. It's been over a year since I had anything to do with it, you know. And she found out she had this other child. And so I went to the lawyer and I got a divorce on adultery, see? Mm-hmm. And then after that happened, after I got my divorce, and we got married by a Methodist bishop who won't marry you if you were divorced unless it was on adultery.
I see.
It's the only way you get married with the Methodist church. If you had a divorce, it had to be on adultery, otherwise you couldn't get married. Right. He wouldn't marry you. Maybe somebody else would, but he wouldn't. Anyhow, we got married, and of course, I guess it was about a year and 3 months, our daughter Ruth Ann was born. Mm-hmm. And of course, she took care of my other two children for me. And we built a home out there in the country on a piece of 1 acre of land that her stepfather gave her. And we lived in that house for 13 years. And as far as me being in the wholesale meat business is concerned, I was in it for 4 years. And I was very successful. But when I first started out in the business, our home, and where we lived, this new home we built out there in the country was paid for, and it was worth more than $3,500. That's for sure. That's the picture right there, you know. Mm-hmm. Anyhow,
here, I'll get a picture and keep talking.
Yeah. I want to get a drink of water.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll tell you what. What we'll do is we'll fade this out and we'll start it back in just a minute. So, anyway, Grandpa, thanks a lot for this short bit of the interview. We'll continue it in a little while after you get a drink of water, okay? Tell us a little bit about this home that we see here.
Tell us about it.
Told you about it.
Well, tell us about it again while we're
right now.
Now that we're looking at it.
Well, that home was built way back in the 30s.
Oh, I see.
And
this is it.
Cost us at that time about $3,500. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful home, as you can see. And my wife's stepfather gave us that piece of ground to build on, 1 acre, which we did. We built on it. And it was very thoughtful of him to give it to us. And that's where Ruth Ann spent her first 13 years of your life, your mother, right there in that home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That sure is a beautiful home, isn't it? That's in New Jersey?
Yeah.
In Pittman, New Jersey.
Pittman, New Jersey. Well, Pittman and Jefferson Road, near Pittman, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Shall we fade it?
Okay. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Back, huh?
With Mr. Bill Parke, and from a slightly different angle here in his lovely home in Flamingo Heights, a suburb of Yucca Valley. Grandpa, you were telling us a little bit about Grandma, Emma Boone Parke. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about her personality-wise?
Personality?
Yeah, what was Grandma like?
Well, Grandma was a wonderful woman. She had a very strong mind. And she was a sticker for people being honest. If they weren't honest, she would tell them about it without any, what would you say,
Inhibitions?
anything. If somebody did something she didn't like, she wasn't afraid to tell them about it, believe me. And when I was in the wholesale business, she did all my book work. She also helped me deliver stuff sometimes, special stuff, make a special trip clean from Philadelphia to Atlantic City to help me out when I had orders that I couldn't take care of that day because maybe the company didn't have it. I had to send it out the next day because I had two territories. I would work 3 days a week and the other one 2. So sometimes I couldn't deliver the merchandise that people needed, and my wife was very helpful to doing what she did for me. And both of us worked together. That's why we were very successful.
Now, as I recall, there was one time when Grandma had to put the meat in the Packard.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Delivered to one of my customers in Atlantic City, and the man at the market said, "Well, Bill always lets me charge it." My wife says, "You don't let charge it with me. I want the cash."
So
anyhow, he paid her cash. He needed it. He paid her cash. But anyhow, that customer didn't get mad at me. He kind of laughed it off when he told me about it.
why don't you tell us a little bit about that story? I believe it was a friend of yours, or maybe your boss, or somebody like that, who was driving drunk.
Oh, no, my wife. Of course, our kids were little. Was young when we lived. Of course, I guess Sarah and Bill, they were a little older. They were going to school up in. Well, they were going to high school when Ruth Ann was growing up. Because there was a spread about 10 years, I reckon, or more.
Yeah.
Between the three of them.
I believe so.
And anyhow, my wife used to take the kids to school, and your mother, Ruth Ann, used to go to a teacher's college. In New Jersey, she never went to a public school. She went to a teacher's college, which we paid extra to send her there, because she learned a lot more there than she could ever learn in a public school. And the other 2 children, we also paid for them to go to public schools too, because we didn't like the little country school that they were going to. And their stepmother, my wife, Ruth Ann's mother, didn't like the way the school handled children, and didn't like the things they did that they shouldn't do. And she took the kids out of that Barnesboro school and put them in the Pittman school. And the Barnesboro principal told her that she couldn't do that. And also, Mr. D.W. Davis, in the Pittman public school system, he was the principal there. He told my wife, "You can't do it either." He said, "It'll cost you money." And my wife said to him, "Look, I'm not asking you what the money is, what it costs. My children are going to go to this school down here, a better school." See? And they went to the Pittman public schools and finished their education, whether they liked it or not, and we paid for it. See?
Well, that's right. Well, that education sure does show in the children, doesn't it?
Oh, you better believe it. And we used to have friends come to our house out there in the country when we were living there. We used to play pinochle. There'd be 4 couples come out, play pinochle, you know. And this one couple, Mabel Schrader, her husband was a cost accountant for one of the railroad, I think for the Pennsylvania Railroad. They worked up there on Broad Street in Philadelphia. And I don't have any idea what kind of money he made, you know, I don't know. But this Mabel said to my wife one time, "How can a truck driver own a home like this, you know?" So my wife told her, "My husband is not just a truck driver, he's a salesman, a driver salesman, see?" So she thought and I don't know why a truck driver should be so common anyhow. You know what I mean? It's a living,
Sure.
see?
Grandpa, we all know how much you enjoy pets, how much you love Fritzy. Tell us a little bit about some of your other pets, like Dutchie,
Oh, we used to have
Pal, and Rascal.
our first dog was Duchess. Duchess number 1. my daughter Sarah, for some reason or other, Duchess didn't like her. Every time she'd go up the steps, he'd chase her up and bite her heels. And also, that dog Duchess didn't like me either. She was all right when my wife wasn't around, but when my wife was around, that dog was on her lap. I couldn't touch her at all, because he'd bite me. But anyhow, she lived to be 18 years old, that dog. And then we got, let me see, we come to California. Dutchie lived quite a while. And then we moved to Compton in California, lived there about a year. Then we built a home in Fullerton, California, and opened a grocery store there. We was there for 23 years. We didn't make any money, but we had the place open for 23 years. And well, then we had another dog called Blackie. And Blackie was a Labrador Retriever and a Airedale or something. I don't know. Anyhow, he was a mongrel, but he was one of the finest dogs we ever owned. And talk about a watchdog. We left our store door open one night and up there on the hill at Carhart in Fullerton. And the police tried the door and found it open. And they knocked on the window, you know, to wake us up about it, tell us about it. And that dog of ours run around. He made from one front end of the store, clean around the back of the barn, around into the gate in seconds. And the cops wanted to know how many dogs we had. We told we only had the one. But anyhow, then Dutchie died, then we got bought another thoroughbred Boston Terrier. We also called her Dutchie the Second. And we bred her twice. And she had, one time she had five. She had 5 puppies. There was Ireland, Sniffles, Midnight, Rascal, and Pal. Pal was a poor little guy. He was a midget of the bunch, and he had the proper screw tail for that Boston Terrier. His is the shortest, you know what I mean? He didn't have no tail at all. Anyhow, he lost one of his eyes, the little guy, and we felt sorry for him. We didn't sell him. We felt sorry for him. We kept him. He lived 10 years, but he was the funniest dog that I think ever lived. He'd lay in my arms. Lay in my wife's lap and nurse on her arm like he was nursing. You know what I mean? Because his mother, when he was a little baby, didn't want to nurse him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We used to have to make Dutchie lay down to feed the dogs. He didn't want to feed them. So anyhow, he lived 10 years, but he was a rascal. He'd bite you, he'd love you, then he'd bite you. Pal, when he'd love you and bite you, remember, don't you?
Yeah, I remember the playpen.
Yeah, I had a playpen right out here. You know what he did? He got smarter. He learned how to climb out of it.
Yeah, or eat a hole through it.
Yeah. You know how to climb out of it. Anyhow, then we then we lost all these 3 dogs. Blackie died, and Rascal died, Dutchie died, and Hal died. Then we didn't have a dog for a while. So then came along one year around Christmas time, and my son-in-law, Roland Hilscher, he bought this thoroughbred dachshund when it was only about 3 months old, wasn't it? And brought him down here for us, and we've had him ever since. Now he's going on 5, almost 5 years old, and he's a beautiful dog.
That's Fritz.
Fritzy, yeah. Fritzy's a beautiful dog, and they don't come any smarter than that little dog. That dog is smart. You say anything about this or about that, he knows what you're talking about. He's that smart, you know what I mean?
He sure is.
But anyhow,
well, Grandpa, we're running out of time here. The tape is just about ready to go to an end, and we're using the batteries, and the battery's going low.
Yeah.
But why don't you just give us a couple of more words to sum up the wonderful times you've had in your life. What would you like to tell your posterity? The unborn great grandchildren?
What I would like to say is that through my whole lifetime, and my wife, no matter what my wife and I ever ventured to do, we were always successful. And whatever we wanted to accomplish, we did.
And why is that?
That's because it's love for one another.
A man and wife?
Yeah.
You think that's probably about the most important thing you can
Oh, I
have?
think so. That and being loyal to each other. If you do that, you'll always have a good life.
I think so. That probably causes a lot of the problems we have today, isn't it? Doesn't it?
Don't cause a lot of them, causes all of them.
Grandpa, thank you very much.
But when you get married, don't feel that your wife isn't part of it, because she is. And marriage is not a one-way street. It goes both ways. So you can't be the boss all the time. You have to give and take. You'll always have your arguments, but when you go to bed at night, kiss and make up. That's the thing to do. And your married life will stay married.
We appreciate those words of wisdom, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Grandpa. And until the next time we interview you, we'll say good night.
Good night.